Well, as you saw there, the lambs have now been moved out onto the pasture, and we're still waiting for the final ladies to pop. So we've got 4 more still in the barn. But we're not talking about that today. We are talking about the start of the market garden and flower farm. So now we are mid-March. It's really time to start ramping out things on the market garden and flower farm. And as you can see, there's quite a lot of cloches that I've got up with goodies underneath. Now I should say that a lot of these plants under this is not for protection from the cold, it's protection from the rabbits and the deer. There's nothing more disheartening than planting out loads of lovely seedlings and then something comes along and in one night eats everything. So here, for example, underneath here I have got wallflowers, and they really don't need protection from the frost. These were planted last year, sown last year, and now these wallflowers are coming up. But you can see I was attacked and they went along and it ate all the tops. So most of these plants at some point have been eaten right down, and now they're regenerating. So I'm not sure exactly how these are going to do. I mean, there's some flowers on this one, but that can't be cut for a flower bouquet, for example. So on really hot days, I take this off, and then in the evening when I'm leaving, I pop it back on just to protect them. And once they're bushier and bigger, obviously they can take a bit more of a knock. But at the moment, they're fragile. And as I said before, when in the colder season, they don't grow as quickly, which means they don't rebound from nibbles as quickly. And you can lose a crop just like that because they don't have a chance to bounce back. So we have our wallflowers in this bed all along here. I've been clearing out this bed for some more seedlings that I've got ready to go in. And then we've got 3 more sets of cloches here, which have got various plants in. So under this one, we have lots of lovely sweet williams, which were, again, they are biennials, so they were sown last year and they are coming up nicely. Under this little low tunnel over here, we have Hesperus, now these plants have actually been out for quite a few months now, and you can see they've got loads of growth on them, as well as a few weeds. That's the only downside of having polys outside and low tunnels. It makes it nice and warm for the weeds as well. So that's Hesperus. We've got purple and white. And then in this low tunnel we have ranunculus. And we had an awful time with ranunculus last year because the deer came along and ate a lot. So we barely got any flowers. So this year I'm taking a lot more care. For long-time viewers, you might remember that the winter before last, we had a very cheap polytunnel here that the goats were living in. And there was a big storm and it blew off in the middle of the night and completely got ruined. But I've reused the plastic from that polytunnel for these sort of low tunnel cloches. And the other nice thing is, because where they've got the vents on them, where you had it on the polytunnel to open up and air it, you can also open the vents up here and just check on your plants. So it works quite well. And it means that I can come along, I can check if it's a really cold day, I don't have to take the polys off. I can check if they need watering or anything. And then you just put it back down. While we're here, another sure sign that spring is on the way is the lengthening hours of daylight. And in the quail coop, hopefully today they might have obliged. And they have actually. We've had no eggs for ages. And today we've got 3 little goodies. Now I'm actually running quite low on quails themselves because I've lost quite a few recently just to old age. So all of the quail legs from the next month or so are going to be going into the incubator. Now things on the veggie side of life are a little bit quieter, because we're not quite at the stage yet where I can plant many things out. So the veggie garden itself looks a mess. You know, all of these holes where the lettuces are, these are not lettuces, these are thistles and weeds. But I'm kind of one of those people that I don't like to prepare my beds mega in advance, because then unless you're about to plant them, because otherwise they sit there and then there's more chance for more weeds. So I tend to, you know, if I'm going to suddenly plant out some lettuces in a couple of days, the day before I'll come and refresh the bed, so it's not just sat here for ages. So all of this kale and chard and weeds all needs pulling out. The one good thing we have got going are our lettuces, are our onions and garlic. So this is one of our garlic beds. Running down here, you can see the path beside it is awfully weedy, which I must sort out. Then we've got our onions and more onions. And if you'd watched the channel a few weeks ago and I was kind of questioning the red onions versus the white onions because they hadn't come up, well, here are the white onions, and the red onions have now started to poke through. So it does seem that the white onions came up first and the red onions just took that a little bit longer to get going. Down at the Polytunnel there is a bit more life going on. Definitely inside but also outside. So we've still got a few biennial plants we need to get out. These are more flowers, so these are Honesty. It's a mix of purple and white, so we need to get all these little plants out. I've also got some yarrow. I started to pot some on, but I wasn't very good at keeping them watered. As you can see, a few have died off. But there's some great patches here. I mean, loads of weeds in here, but there's also some lovely little yarrow seeds, seedlings, and more here. So those need to be pricked out and planted straight out into the garden. And then we've had an issue with mice, as we always do. So under here, I've made a tiny little greenhouse. And these are lots of little lettuce seedlings. So we've got a red salad bowl red and a salad bowl green lettuce coming out. And so soon these will need pricking out and going into the actual garden where I was just mentioning. But in the Polytunnel, where things are positively tropical, it's a slightly different story. So we've started to clear it all out. I've laid loads of cardboard down. I still got to cover this strip of green up over here. And we have a few lettuces left from our winter test season. It does seem that the voles have now moved on because the surviving lettuces have not been nibbled. So we will have a very few lettuces for myself, but it didn't work that great. But you can see there are a few. We've got parsley over the corner, but what we're mostly sowing in here is some seeds. So these are cornflowers that we did only a couple of weeks ago. They are a bit leggy because they were in our office and I forgot about them, and I've just moved them into the Polytunnel. And then here we have chard. These are spring onion. We've got 2 types of kale, 1 and 2. We've got some spinach, and I just think, isn't that fabulous? That luminous green of that fresh growth, I love it. Turnips, sowed way too much, way too close. So I'm going to have to prick all of these out again. Two types. I think this is Snowball, this is Purple Top Milan, and then this is the start of our beets. So they are just coming through, as you can see as well. And honestly, this polytunnel, it's from Premier Polytunnels. It's been a game changer for me here at the farm, because whereas you know, last year I had to do everything at home under grow lights, trying not to get it too leggy and then get it here, I can start seeds quite happily. Now, I can't start them on the floor because of the rodent issue. So what I've got here is actually, this is an old frame from a keyboard with a piece of our corrugated random scrap tin on top, and then they've completely survived. The other thing that I do have at home are all my aubergines, the start of my chilies, and the start of my peppers. However, even there, I'm running out of space. So down this corner, I've got a little test. So I've just popped in 3 aubergine plants, and they're looking okay. There's a little bit of yellowing, and that's from the lack of nutrients, and that was actually back at home before I planted these out. So they're in the polytunnel, and then they have a double layer of a recycled bottle on top. They've only been out a couple of days. Obviously at the moment we haven't actually had any frosts, but they seem to be doing okay. I mean, you can see this one, it really is quite yellow, so I may have to give them a little feed, although now they're into some really rich compost. Hopefully that will help. But this is my first year with the polytunnel, so I'm hoping that putting them out early might be a way to get them out of the grow room into the ground, so they've got more space at home. I'm also a little bit excited because I bought a new kiwi, and I thought it had died, but actually we have some nice buds coming out. So I'm hoping to get a nice kiwi vine. Now, this polytunnel isn't immense and it's not really tall, but I have got an almond, and I'm thinking of putting, because I don't want to ruin the space and make it in the future difficult to use, so I'm thinking of planting the almond kind of in this back corner around here, and keeping it just pruned and fairly small so it can still fruit, and then maybe the vine, the kiwi vine, on this side, and having it come up and cross here a little bit, because I would like to keep them in the polytunnel and see how they do. But at the same time, I don't want to limit myself in the future of what I grow in here, and because this is mainly going to be the hot plants paradise, so you know, chilies, tomatoes, aubergines, all that sort of thing, that need to be in the heat throughout the year, and also a place where we can start all of our seeds. And then finally, of course, we have our beds where we put our daffodil bulbs in, and I'm actually quite excited as well because we were gifted these old apple trees that somebody dug up from their allotment and brought, and look, they are coming into life. But the raised beds where we've planted all of those daffodils and tulips, a few tulips, are coming on nicely. And thank you to those of you that responded to my last video where I was talking about the daffodils not coming up all at the same time. So it does seem that actually different varieties flower at different times, so I may not be able to do those bundles of all different varieties of flowers unless I force some of the bulbs. But this is one bed. You can see that these were the first to come out, and they were quite short stemmed this year, so I actually left them all in. And then we had this second lot coming out, and then this variety at this end are now starting to flower. And I obviously put all the yellow ones in one bed because none of the white varieties have come out yet. And then here is our other bed, and you can see these are starting to come out. We have some tiny miniature ones down here. Again, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with these ones. And then we have some tulips, which, you know, these were just a whim. I wasn't going to grow any tulips. A lovely friend sent me some, so I stuck them in, and you can see actually we're already getting a few buds. Don't miss this video where you can roll back a year and see how this market garden looked in its peak last summer.